Oh. Oh no. Oh. Oh, what do I do? What does it mean? What do I wear? What do I do?
Have you ever had this type of problem? You jump into a game and have no idea what gear means or what kind of character you want to play. Well, stay tuned to this new Atratzu review on Guild Wars 2 to find out more. That rhymed! Welcome back! Presumably. Maybe you're new. Well, regardless of this being your first video or not, welcome, welcome. I gave an overview review for Guild Wars 2, which can also be used as a standalone review. While it's certainly not necessary to watch that review to understand what I'm covering in this video, I highly suggest you do so. It will give you a better foundation for understanding Guild Wars 2 in general before we dive into the gearing process. Alright, so let's start off with the types of gear there is. You have 6 armor slots: head, shoulder, chest, hands, legs, and feet. Or as I prefer to call them, bucket, football plates, dress, gloves, pants, and shoes. There are, of course, weapons, both an above water and underwater weapon. Don't worry too much about your water weapon. I dare say 99% of Guild Wars 2 is played on land. Also, I made that statistic up. Bite me. There are 3 types of armor: light, medium, and heavy. You can contrast these with other well-known memorpugs. Light is cloth, medium is leather, and heavy is plate. The type of armor is somewhat reflected by the types of armor you can appear to look like. I mean, you can play as a heavy character and transmog his or her gear to look like light armor, but it only happens from certain armor skins and aesthetics. In other words, most heavy armor will still look like heavy armor. You can mix and match to make it look like your character's running around in a string bikini, but I'll let you figure that much out for yourself. Also, enjoy freezing in Hullbreck, you nudist. Of course, there is also quality level of armor. Basic quality is the lowest quality and is represented by the color white. Fine quality represented by blue, masterwork is green, rare is yellow, exotic is orange, ascendant is a crimsony reddish color, and legendary is purple. Other than the obvious implications of armor rarity, the lower the quality, the more likely you'll loot it.
I've had who knows how many billions of greens and blues that have gone through my inventory from time to time, and I just send them all away to the big, bright yellow gear in the sky.
After you get to max level and gear up, you really don't have much use for greens and blues anymore. You can salvage them, sell them, vendor them, or I guess you could always try to put them in the Mystic Forge and roll for higher quality stuff, but I've always traditionally had terrible luck with the gods of RNG. It's all those darn mirrors I broke as a kid, exclaiming, "I don't believe in luck!"
Whoops, it got too real, bros. Got too real. Bros, got too real, bros.
So here's the thing. If you're gearing your character, you'll probably want to aim for exotic gear first. If you can't do exotics, you can pick up greens or yellows. But take it from Uncle Atratzu. You want to get yourself some exotics. But if you really like being better than me, you can invest the time and gear up in Ascendeds. But those are used more so for a special kind of dungeon known as fractals. And that's where the elite PvE snobs go. Or so I thought. It was that way when I first did fractals as a pug. But they might have moved someplace else, though. I don't even want to join their exclusive clubs anymore anyway.
Whoa, I'm really on a tangent here, aren't I? I guess it's just gonna be one of those kinds of reviews.
Next up, we have stats on gear. Brace yourself, a lot of words are coming. Berserker, Zealot, Soldier, Valkyrie, Captain, Rampager, Assassins, Knights, Cavaliers, Nomad, Settlers, Giver, Winters, Sentinels, Shaman, Sinister, Carrier, Rabid, Dire, Clerks, Magi, Apocryphy, Commander, Marauder, Vigilance, Crusaders, Wanderer, Vipers, Trailblazer, Minstrel, and Celestial. Whew! I had to re-record that part over 10 times. I've just listed to you each of the prefixes currently available in Guild Wars 2 as of March 2017. It's worth noting that there are some new prefixes which have been added since launch. And sometimes people tell me about new types of gear which have been released and I didn't even know that they were being released. So yeah, let's talk about what those even mean.
Roll for initiative!
At this time, there are 9 attributes or armor stats. Let's cover what I would call the basic stats. Power. I think of power as doing direct physical damage to your enemy. Precision. Precision is your chance to critical hit. Originally, this stat was more confusing because you had crit hit and you had crit chance. Both stats are still represented, but they're easier to distinguish. Ferocity is your crit damage. Guild Wars 2 has made it much easier to see these represented and in use because on your stats page it will say your crit hit and crit damage amounts in percentages. In other words, it does the math for you. Do remember that your level scales with it and on the stats on your gear. That's only relevant when you're examining stats in a low area where you aren't level 80. Okay, pause. Those 3 stats, power, precision, and ferocity, are part of the Berserker armor set. Definitely a very popular armor set, which is basically a glass cannon. There are no defensive armor stats. If you wear Berserker armor, you will do more damage. But if you get hit, you'll melt into a puddle faster than Frosty the Snowman in the Sahara Desert. Next, condition damage. It will increase the damage you do with dots, or damage over time. Or if you want to sound like you don't play World of Warcraft, call them conditions. Toughness basically represents your defense or armor. The more toughness you have, the less damage you take.
Yes, quite elementary, my dear Watson.
Vitality, which will give you more max health. If I need to explain why health points are important to you, hi, welcome to video games. If you legitimately need that explained, 0 health means you die. If you need more of an explanation than that, leave a comment. Next, healing power. This attribute will make your heals, well, heal more. The final 2 stats on my list are admittedly new to me. I haven't built any characters around these 2 stats. They are concentration and expertise. Part of the reason why I haven't really utilized these stats is because at this time, you can't get any gear which will increase either concentration or expertise very much. You can only gain minor adjustments from gear. Concentration will increase how long boons last. Basically, boons are buffs, and the reverse of conditions, dots, or debuffs. Expertise will increase the length of your conditions. While writing this review, I realized why concentration and expertise aren't primary stats on gear, because many people build characters specifically to counter conditions and boon characters. Specifically, I have a guardian who uses shouts to cleanse off conditions on himself and nearby allies. But if you buff up too much, many classes can counter that by turning buffs into conditions. Off the top of my head, I know necromancers have wells which can convert boons into conditions, and I believe mesmers have something similar too. Anyway, derailment over. All of those names I read off are prefixes to certain stat mixes. As I've said, Berserker gear has power as its primary stat, and then precision and ferocity as secondary stats. Soldier gear is one of the prefixes I recommend you try out first. It works for most builds by giving you power as the primary stat, and toughness and vitality as secondary stats. The only build it really doesn't work well for are condition characters. For those, I suggest checking out Dire gear, which specializes in condition damage and then has toughness and vitality as secondary stats. Now I do feel that I should add here that some people really like playing as glass cannon characters. So how you gear your character is definitely going to come down to how you like to play, but there are definitely a lot of options open to you. A lot of people who are much better at doing the math and researching gear could tell you which pieces to mix and match for the best combination of power and defense. I think back to my friend Reborn, who always told me about how much crit hit chance he had and would go on and on about how he would set up his character and he would burst melt people's faces right off in World vs. World. And I'm over here like, well, I hope I can just play better than the way I gear myself. And depending on what you want to do, that may or may not be a possibility. But I really can't help anymore in the gearing department. I suggest you try stuff out, and after you have a solid handle on the topic, you spec into the classy tree and put all your stats into charm so you can roll the highest at the fashion show and learn how to jump dodge roll. Moving on! Gear itself isn't where it all stops. You can put gems and runes into your gear, accessories, and jewelry to further increase your stats. I'm not going to go nearly as long a tangent on this topic. But basically, runes have set bonuses, like you'd find in most video game armor. but you can put any runes with any gear into any piece. Except the helmet underwater mask. You switch buckets when you're underwater, so you need to put the same rune in your underwater breather as you would in your on-land helmet. Or just stay out of the freaking water. There are sharks in there! Some people mix and match runes, some people just buy the cheap ones off the trading post. Oh, why are you looking at me like that? Fine, yes, I do that. I view myself as very economical in character gearing, okay? When I think of traits, I think of this as the meat of your character's build. Honestly, all parts of your character, from your gear, stats, runes, used skills, and traits make up your build. But I've always held to the opinion that your traits shall dictate your true build and how you play your character. Each class or profession has 5 specializations and an elite specialization. Elite specializations sound really fancy-pantsy, but you may or may not actually want to use them when available. But hold that thought. We'll talk about elite specializations in a bit. Each specialization will give you different stats. Some favor one weapon type over another. Some will give you bonuses to using certain skills and skill families over another. This is really hard to explain. Maybe it's easiest just to show you a character and explain why I chose what I chose. I think my Necromancer will be the easiest to explain. Basically, I focus on condition damage as well as wells. So this is called a well Necromancer. I could focus on offensive damage with gear or defensive condition damage. Let's not check what kind of stats my gear has though, because I probably didn't set him up correct. A character can have 3 active trees at one time. I'm going to progress assuming you have access to all your trees. If not, well, you gotta get those hero points, or else there's nothing else I can really do for you. A Necromancer can choose between Spite, Curses, Death Magic, Blood Magic, Soul Reaping, and the elite specialization is Reaper. On my Necromancer, I chose Spite, Soul Reaping, and Blood Magic. Spite, because of the complementary condition damage, vulnerability enhancements, damage boost, and shroud enhancements. Soul Reaping, because it gives you buffs to marks, which are the skills you use with your staff. So it's a weapon enhancement. It also yields more shroud enhancements. Lastly, Blood Magic, because it gives upgrades to your well utilities, such as creating wells when you try to revive someone who's fallen, and allows wells to siphon health. This style of well Necromancer came just from a simple build I found online googling well Necromancer. And just looking at this build seems like it's definitely designed for a Zerg team member who throws wells and marks up on walls and revives downed allies. After you grow familiar with your character and playstyle, you would most likely tweak the build to complement your playstyle. Maybe you almost never go into Shroud. In that case, you could pick up traits to enhance other skills. Or maybe there will be a buff at some point where they'll patch in, giving you a new option to try something out. Builds are kind of organic, and I highly suggest trying new stuff out. Before we completely move on from traits, let's talk about elite specialization. The elite specialization will change the class slightly by allowing a new weapon to be used which normally the class couldn't use, like how Necromancers cannot use greatswords, but Necromancers spec'd into Reaping, or Reaper for short, can use a greatsword. You also get a new healing skill, a new elite skill, and some new utility skills. You still have access to all the rest of your core class abilities, you just gain access to some special bonuses. Some people really like their elite specializations, but I don't always choose them because sometimes they require certain gear and weapon changes. For example, I'm a ranger main. Our elite specialization is to become a druid. Cool, sounds interesting. The weapon we use is a staff which fires laser beams, and the rest of the skills and passives strike me as passive, healing, and buffing. I could be wrong, I only glanced over the specialization and saw that I would need to get some new gear to switch over to be a druid, so I decided, nah, I'm gonna stay a ranger, and I'm all the happier for it. Skills or utilities are the numbers 6, 7, 8, 9, and 0 on the keyboard. Again, 1 through 5 number keys are reserved for your weapon skills and are set based on the weapon you're using. If you ever want to examine your weapon skills, just bring up your hero or character panel. I think it's the H key, unless you rebound it like I did. C for character, not H for hero. Come on, people. Then selecting the build tab, then you can see details on the skills by mousing over the skill, and the pop-up will explain what it does. There are 3 categories of utility skills. 1. Race-based utilities. 2. Globally unlocked utilities. And 3. Class-based utilities. The only time I honestly use race or globally unlocked abilities is when I've created a brand spanking new character. Otherwise, I choose utilities which are buffed or enhanced in some way from traits. Each class has a set of utilities which can be buffed by a trait or two. Most classes have a signet-based utility, which behaves a certain way. They provide a passive effect, and if you activate them, they give you a short, quick boost in some way, be it restoring your stamina or giving you stability. Normally, utilities are some type of skill, like for my necromancer in using wells, which you set down on the ground and will hurt whoever is standing in them. It would take a stupid amount of time to go through each class's utilities. I'd recommend you read them over and just try them out and look for builds that utilize your favorites. I know a lot of classes also have a summoning or minion or mob based build. Definitely check those out for beginners, but don't use them for PvP or world vs world. Trust me, I'm saving you a world of hurt. If you want to be your own freaking snowflake, you can make up your own builds, but that's completely up to you. The trick is just to understand the mechanics of the game, and if you need more and deeper mechanics, then you've definitely graduated from the Atratzu Academy of Guild Wars 2.
Because I cannot take you much farther than this, my young Padawan.
But wait, that's not all there is to talk about Guild Wars 2. The next video I have planned will talk on the topics of world events, crafting, dungeons, and fractals. And just try and guess how those connect to each other. They don't. I just got the topics and cut them together and thought, what to cover in video number 3. It's just a smorgasbord of stuff. Anyway, thanks for sticking through to the end. If you liked it, go ahead and give that like signet an activation for a +1 happy Atratzu, and give that subscribe signet a click for a +2 flattery. Thank you for watching. My name's Atratzu, and stay tuned to the next review.